Welcome to Quiltripping Travel with Rose, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring award-winning travel writer and photographer Rose Palmer. Welcome, everyone. It is time to go quilt tripping with Rose. Rose just came back from a transatlantic cruise where she went from Fort Lauderdale to Barcelona. In fact, if you listen to her last episode, which I will link in the episode notes, you'll hear where she was talking, actually recorded from her cruise. You were on the Princess Cruise, right?
I was on a Princess Cruise, yes.
Yep. And her last article and everything was about cruising with Princess Cruise Lines as a first timer on these cruise lines. And Spain was on the itineraries. Portugal, you went all over the place. That was like a long cruise. How many weeks were you gone for? A few weeks? It was a while.
It was a 2-week cruise, but eight of those days were at sea as we crossed the Atlantic. So we only really had 3 port days once we reached Madeira, which is off the coast of Africa. That was the first port day. And then 2 ports in Spain, Cadiz and Malaga. So it was a lot of sea days, which is why I took the cruise, because I just love those lazy sea days. But it was fun to visit these ports that I had not been to and see parts of Spain that I had not seen before.
Well, when you did this, did you take I know we asked you this on the garden podcast, but I'm going to ask you again. Did you take your sewing machine to make a quilt on this cruise since you had so many sea days?
I was very tempted, and with that many sea days, I would have loved to have my travel machine with me. But since once I reached Spain, my husband was going to meet me there, and then we were going to be traipsing all over the country by train. I didn't really want to be hauling 2 bags up and down a train. So this time I did not take it with me, but I would have liked to, because those sea days are perfect for just being creative. But I did try and get some writing done. But I did some hand sewing. I picked up, when I was in Japan last year, I picked up a couple of new hobbies. One is called sashiko, which is a Japanese form of embroidery. And I did some of that. And then I picked up another hobby called tamari balls, which is also a form of embroidery, but it's made on balls that have been wrapped in yarn and thread, and very intricate designs. So I actually did a Zoom class while I was on the ship to make my first one. So I still did, had my creative outlets when I was on the ship, but not the quilting kind.
We want photos, Rose. I think we need to see this on your social media, right? So everyone, quilt tripping is. You did?
Yeah,
did I miss it?
So on my Instagram, I did post the photo of my tamari ball, so it's there. Yeah.
My gosh,
it's not
I'm behind.
Perfect.
Bad podcast host.
It's okay.
I want to check that out. I think that's so cool to learn different crafts when you travel. And Spain, I was looking at your pictures. It just seems like you had this most vibrant, colorful experience. The colors, the costumes. You went to a carnival, right? You did so much in Spain. I don't know, in Madrid, you went to a palace, it just seems, maybe it's just I'm all excited about the carnival, but the palaces also seem to be full of color. I mean, vibrancy.
So I was, as we were docking and reaching the ports, we happened to be reaching the ports during Carnival season. So just like, Brazil is known for its Carnival, right, in Rio. Well, it turns out, as I was doing my research about what to do and what to see in Spain, they also celebrate Carnival in Spain, just like in New Orleans and in Rio. So it's this party attitude before the beginning of Lent, when where you're supposed to be abstaining from all of those fun things. So I happened to catch Carnival weekend in Cadiz, which is a coastal port city in Spain. It's actually, as I was learning about it, it's supposed to be the oldest European city. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit. And we landed on a Saturday, and that was their big carnival weekend. And the town was full of not just we were the only ship in town, but it was packed with visitors from both Spain and from other parts of Europe, because Cadiz apparently is known for their carnival celebrations. And on Saturday they had um, little stages set up in all the small little squares throughout town. And it's not a big town. Well, the old town anyway is not a big area, but it's filled with all these little squares, as many of the older European cities and towns are. And in each one, they had a stage set up, and then they had musical performances. And then the fun part is people would be dressed up in costumes. Not everybody, but I'd say a good 50% were dressed up. And it was a kind of a community event, because you'd have families dressed in a theme. Mm-hmm. So there was a family dressed in like Mario Brothers, the movie and the game, and the different characters, all the way from grandma and grandpa to mom and dad to the kids and the baby in the stroller. They all had costumes on. Or another one that was really, really cute. Again, a family. The adults were all dressed in like beekeepers, really easy costume for them. And then little baby was dressed like a bumblebee. I mean, it was adorable. And then, I mean, just a whole variety of costumes, from the really cute ones like that to, there's one of the photos I sent you was a group of mostly guys dressed up as Snow White, and I think there were more than 7 dwarves, and the dwarves, and Snow White was a gentleman with a beard, and they were traipsing around in the big plaza in front of the cathedral, and that was one of the main spots for the celebration. And people were they would be, they'd do their little skit, or they would do a dance or a song and pose for photos. And then you had just some really silly costumes, like, I saw a group of nuns. I saw, like,
it's like Halloween.
Well, yeah, I guess it's, I don't know if they celebrate Halloween. A lot of Europe seems to celebrate Halloween now as well, but it's, it definitely seemed to be about, dressing up and having fun. And then because it was the middle of the day, it was still fairly calm and sedate. I don't know how it got by the end of the day, but at least the middle of the day, it was still very much a family atmosphere. And just a variety of costumes. And then I hung out to see one of the performances on one of the stages. And, these group of gentlemen came up again, all dressed up. And that's one of the photos. Unfortunately, I have them from the back because of where I was standing. But they were up there with their instruments and singing. And from what the research I had done, I got the sense that the songs were original compositions, and that there was sort of irony and sarcasm in the content based on kind of the reactions of the crowd. So, I don't speak Spanish other than a few words, so I really didn't understand what they were saying, but the crowd was enjoying it, and where they were laughing, and just a great experience to see something very, very local and very kind of very typical and very traditional, and not touristy, but in a different sense,
Yeah, the culture experience.
Yes,
it's like you were into a community event, and that's part of travel.
It was.
I love that. That's so much fun. So that was the carnival, and that was Cadiz, right? And then
that was Cadiz, and then in Sitges, right?
Yeah, so Sitges.
Yeah, it's a little tricky to pronounce. I still stumble over it, but the Carnival was being celebrated for at least a week to 10 days before Ash Wednesday, and each town had its own set of dates and various types of celebrations and when they did them. So again, as I was doing my research, we landed, the ship ended the cruise in Barcelona, and I've been to Barcelona before a couple of times, and it's a beautiful city, and it's wonderful to visit, and if nobody's ever been there, it's your first time, I'd definitely recommend spending a few days and visiting all the beautiful buildings built and
Mm,
designed by Anton Gaudi, especially the Sagrada Familia.
mm,
But this time, I found out that Tuesday that I landed in the town of Sitges, which is about an hour to the south on the coast. That evening and that day, they were having their big parade and celebration. So I decided
cool.
that I would do that instead. So I booked a hotel for the night, pretty much right where the parade was starting, and with with a room with a balcony overlooking the street where the parade was going to be. And so I spend my day there. It's a cute little town. It's the core is old, historic, traditional. On the beach, it's known for its beachfront, apparently, at a beautiful beach. And what I didn't know before I got there was that it was actually two carnival parades that day. I just happened to find out about the first one at noon when I was talking to when I was checking into the hotel. And so at in the middle of the day, they were doing one with all the kids in
Mm-hmm.
town.
That's cute.
So yeah, I swear, I think every single child in the city was in that parade, and they were all in different troops or groups, and each one had their own set of costumes and was doing their own little dance routine. And then each group had their float, and it was pulled by a tractor, and the littler kids were usually on the float, and they were laughing and smiling, and had these big plastic grocery bags filled with shredded paper, which they would, kind of like confetti, and which they would just, throw out at the audience. And it was just, again, that was just so much fun that just happened to catch it. And it was very much a community event. Again, middle of the day, I imagine the
Mm.
kids were had off school that day, because
Yeah,
none of
it's
them
going to
would
be
have been
like
in
a
school.
national holiday. It's carnival. Yeah.
And you could tell that a lot of the family was in standing, in the audience along the side of the street and watching and waving, and some of the parents moms were walking alongside, chaperoning, and everybody was just having a grand old time. It was so much fun. Um,
I love things like that because it takes us out of our bubble of what's going on. You know what I mean?
yes.
It just kind of
Oh yeah,
reminds us
yeah,
that the rest of the world is happy, no matter what's going on in the world. There's
exactly.
parts, and also shows community and family and fun and joy. And I don't know, we need this no matter what, you know,
Exactly.
I just watched a documentary where on as a tech thing on crypto and all of that, and this founder of Ethereum, this company, goes to a tech conference in Kiev in Ukraine during this war that's going on because his thing
Why
was
not?
helping
I
with
guess. Yeah.
freedom. Again,
Right.
yeah, right. But during everything, right? He's
Yeah.
doing this conference in a bomb shelter, and people
Wow.
had a community to keep things going because this blockchain and crypto thing is actually helping people during the war. And
Oh.
I was like, to see community do things internationally in ways, it just, the world and when we, as, and the founder of this company, Ethereum, is a digital nomad because he's like, you can't just do anything, global and all of that with tech and not actually have your foot in reality of the people. And so it's really fascinating. And so when you look at what you're doing, we watch the news, and this is the beauty of travel. Travel transcends everything because you get
Yes.
to be in a different world, even if you're armchair traveling, which is what we do with these podcasts. We, give people, oh, I want to go and experience this, or wow, I may never get there, but I'm kind of living through this and hearing about it. So you know that, hey, community exists. And sometimes in life, we don't feel that way right now. This country, America, is going through a little bit of a
Yeah.
change. Everybody's on different sides, and that's not what I'm here to talk about right now, but travel transcends when you go into these kinds of community events, and that includes in our own country. with
Yes,
whatever's
yes,
going on, sometimes go to these parades or whatever it is in a community, and not it's not necessarily always the touristy thing. And that's what I think is so beautiful about what you experienced. Yes, as a traveler, we want to go to these things, but it sounds like you were more um, in a community sphere than,
yes,
we're putting this
exactly.
on as a touristy festival. Does that make
Yes.
sense? You know?
And that's exactly what I felt because so this is a small town. It's a little bit of a touristy destination, but this particular parade and event, and the evening one in particular. So the adult version of the parade started at 9 o'clock at night, and I don't know how late it went because it took about 2 hours to end, and I was at the beginning of it, and they were easily traveling at least for an hour just to the other end, I would imagine. Um, but it felt very local, like I said, the Rio and some of these other big cities are known for their big carnivals and attract the crowds. But this felt like a local event, and yet what really impressed me is that how the people really, how much effort they put into it. It wasn't, just a small little shoddy affair. It felt very professional. So again, for in the adult version, you had troop after troop after troop dressed up in fancy costumes and each one doing their own routine, and the costume and the routine and the music and then the float, was all based on a theme. So they probably, I bet you after the parade ended, they probably started planning for next year's because, I bet you they were practicing and putting it together for a long time, and it kept going and going. It was just one group after another, and they were having fun. They were smiling and laughing, and the other thing that really impressed me is that it was all age groups. It wasn't just women in big, with lots of feathers and
Mm-hmm.
sequins. There were a lot of men in each of the troops, and they were perfectly comfortable in tights and sequins and feathers and
I
headdresses,
noticed that in your photos. I'm
fancy
like, look at
makeup.
this. They're
Yeah,
strutting their stuff. Oops.
and
But yeah,
and it
it's
wasn't just
cool.
20 somethings, I mean, it was, 20 somethings all the way up to probably in the 70s. And they were out there and they were having a grand old time, um, parading and dancing and celebrating Carnival. And the audience as well. And again, because it wasn't a big city, it wasn't like 20 people deep by the side of the street watching the carnival. It was maybe two or three deep at the most, and then by towards the end of the evening, um, as people were getting tired, or maybe they had to go home and go to bed so they could go to work the next day. Um, I had no trouble going down to street level and getting right up next to the parade route and getting photos. I mean, I loved it because like you said, it felt so local, and yes, I did hear British accents and some German accents and even a few Americans, but I think we were the exception. I really do think most of the spectators were locals and Spaniards coming to see this celebration. It was a lot of fun. Highly recommended if you're visiting Spain anytime in March. See if Carnival is happening and try and
Mm,
attend an event in one of these smaller communities because it was a great time.
that is so cool. Now you went to a place I want to go, and this is all because of the guitarist Segovia. Sorry, it's a thing from when I was a little girl. I'm like, I want to go to Segovia because under Segovia. I used to listen to his music
Really?
as a kid going, yeah, I
Okay.
try to play like him, but sorry, that didn't happen. Like, no, I couldn't, no, I can't do, I've written music even trying to emulate it, and no, No, that is not in my genes to do. I can sing, but I cannot play that music. And I love
Okay.
his music,
Well,
but
I'd still like to hear you. I think we need to do a podcast and turn the tables and have you play and be interviewed.
oh, yeah, yeah, no. I can entertain you with a lot of band stories. Let's put it that way. That's a whole show. That is kind of a crazy story, but a lot of stories, but, um, Segovia is like, does it have anything to even to do with him? Because I just always saw
I
Segovia as a
don't know
kid.
because I don't even know who he
I'm gonna
is.
have to
I'm
look this up
sorry.
because
I
as a
mean, I love,
kid, I just always wanted to
yeah.
go there because of Segovia. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I love listening to Spanish guitar music. But no, we did a day trip, a tour actually, because it was just more efficient. We didn't have as much time. We only had a day. So we did an organized bus tour. And we went because of the Roman aqueduct. And again, I sent you a couple of photos. So
Mm,
this is the UNESCO site. It is impressive. It's 2,000 years old, two-level aqueduct that the Romans built to bring water. I forget, like 19 miles, something like that. Very long. It's not two levels for the whole length of it, but here in the middle of town is what it was. And so we went to see that, and also just to walk around town and also see we also saw the Alcazar, which is the palace. But mostly the highlight of the tour in Segovia was this Roman aqueduct, which it was one of my favorite things actually that I saw in Spain because it just
mm.
no mortar, all stone, big chunks of stone, built obviously to cover a long distance, but also to keep a consistent pitch so that the water moves. And it was working into the 70s, I believe, I think is what our
Wow.
guide told us. So they were still using it fairly recently. Um,
Mm,
it's, yeah, just
wow.
an amazing piece of, I mean, anything that we still see these days of Roman engineering and architecture that survived this long. It's a great testament to their construction and engineering skills.
Well, I want to tell people there's a link in the episode notes to a page where the podcast is on blendradioandtv.com so you can see the photos. And I did go have to look this up after all I had really, we've had Google for how long, but this was a kid, thing as a kid. Segovia is about 4 hours north of Linares. Linares,
Huh.
Linares. Linares, and that's where Andres Segovia Torres was born. So he
Okay.
was born from
Okay.
Linares. He died in Madrid, which is where you went to, right? So,
Yeah, we started in Madrid because that's an easy place to fly into, especially from the East Coast in the U.S. And then we by train we did a circuit from Madrid. So I met my from Barcelona. Then after my day in Sitges, I took this train to Madrid, met my husband, and then we toured around the southern Andalucia region of Spain for a couple of weeks.
ooh, that's beautiful, man. And so you went to Andalusia? I mean, come on, this is like bucket list. And
It is. Well, it was.
was this the
Yes.
first time you'd been to Spain?
Well, the first time to Andalucia, we'd been to Spain before and went to Madrid and Barcelona. But that was about over 10 years ago. So this was our first. This was a bucket list trip. We've always wanted to go to Andalucia and see the highlights,
So
Seville.
it's not Andalusia, like I keep saying. So
Well,
it's
I think
Andalusia.
yeah, I don't know,
Huh.
Caribbean. I don't know.
Okay. Tomato,
Potato,
tomato.
potato.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I just went, and
But
then you went
yeah,
to Seville. I mean, the photos of this are incredible, and everyone, we have a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle you can do too, for this, because just wait, you're going to try and do a jigsaw puzzle. She's got such beautiful photos of tile work and woodwork and the masonry and how they build. I mean, the attention, like the inspiration for quilting because I love tiles. Like I love that
yes.
kind of design work. So I'm not a quilter, but I'm into like fabric design and tile design and all of that. And I would, in another career, just do fabric design. You know, I would, because you can put nature in there, but then there's all this, like you have to keep it like there's rigidity into, I don't know how to
Yes.
explain that.
Yeah.
You have to stay in your domain. Can't color outside the lines unless the whole thing is about coloring outside the lines. So that's
Right.
cool too. But when you look at the tile work,
Oh,
the
it's
woodwork,
gorgeous.
and then just
Yeah.
how everything is so intricate and so well
Yeah.
done. And I look at our buildings now, like, I'm sorry, but the last 100 years we suck in building. We totally do. When you start looking at this, you're just like, this is amazing skill.
Yeah. I
AI,
love,
non AI generated.
right, right. Um, yeah, I love the Moorish Islamic architecture, especially the
Mm,
historic stuff, because it's so geometric, and it's there's a symmetry to it, and there's a soothing combination of colors, and so it just, it just appeals to my personal creative sensibilities.
mm.
And then not everybody feels the same way, but I love that type of design. But it's funny you should say. So actually, when we were in Madrid and we toured the royal palace, um, like a lot of the palaces in Europe, there's the ceilings are beautifully frescoed, right? Um, and I looked at the ceilings, but then I would look at the floors, because I would see quilt patterns in the marble tile work of of the floors. And I actually did an Instagram reel after that. It's like, okay, yeah, everybody looks up at the ceiling, but here's what I actually was looking at. So I have this
Oh,
collection of different, and
floors.
every room was different, and it's like, okay, here's this quilt pattern block, and here's this, so a lot of recognizable quilt block designs that
So you're like
they're
Nancy and
ancient.
I. Nancy and I do that in Las Vegas. Everyone's looking at casino stuff and whatever. Nancy and I are like the carpets in Vegas. Um,
Never thought about that.
yeah, it's kind of, oh, was that Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas movie with Johnny Depp, Hunter Thompson? And it's just this. It's about the carpets in Las Vegas. That's our thing. It's
Okay,
it's
I'll have
just
to
like, I know it
look at
makes
that.
no sense. I know everybody's looking at all the big attractions, the Bellagio and their beautiful fountains, and we're looking at the carpets. But this is the thing about travel. You're going to find it's those little things that just, I love that you're in these historic places, because I feel like I want a resurgence of art in that way.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
and
I want like that to happen now in buildings,
well,
and, you know, I know.
there, just it's in a different way. But I think what I love about travel is that everybody connects to a new location in a different way based on their
Yeah.
preferences and experiences, and the
You're
things
looking
that
at floors.
that
We're
they
looking
like
at
and
carpets.
value.
I mean, this is interesting. It's like people go for the spiritual, you went to, amazing. I mean, I'm looking at the photos again. Like you went to the Seville Cathedral, and I mean, the altar is I mean, that is opulence,
Oh,
right?
that was over the top. It's the picture
That
doesn't do it
it's
justice. Yeah. It
but
doesn't
I'm
give you
like,
the
look at
3D.
that. That's a lot of
Oh,
gold going on.
it's yeah, it's over the top. It's a lot of gold. It's a lot of very ornate, and then on the other side of that, which I didn't send you a picture of, was the choir area, which it wasn't gold, but that was also beautifully carved and also
Oh.
ornate. It's yeah, it's a huge cathedral, um, and the centerpiece is that particular altar.
And then you went
It's
to a bull
incredible.
ring.
Well, Seville is still, yes, so still the some of the towns in Spain still have their bull rings, and they still do their bullfights occasionally, because it's part of their culture, regardless of what
Mhm.
we think about it. Um, but I was in Seville, so I wanted to see their bull ring. So yeah, and
Mhm.
they had a little kind of museum display of about bullfighting and the history and culture around bullfighting. So that was interesting.
I need to go
And
to
then
Seville. I need to go to
It's
Seville. Everything I'm looking at that you went to, I mean, the
it was
design
lovely.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
the
was
Seville
very
Alcazar.
walkable.
That's
So
where I
yeah, the
want to go.
Alcazar, yeah, it's the palace, and it's again, as I was reading up on it, it said that it's the oldest continuous use palace in Europe. So apparently the royal family still has an apartment there, which they didn't invite us for a glass of wine, but oh well. But the historic public spaces were beautiful, and the tile work there, and the garden area. Um,
Wow,
and it was busy.
amazing.
It was a lot of. I was surprised at how busy the tourist area was, and it was a lot of Spaniards, so a lot of people within their own country coming to see the
Hmm.
sites before it gets busy for the summer with international tourists, and high school groups. So again, European high school groups. So I heard French, I had German, I heard Spanish school groups walking through. I think one or two American groups as well. Um, it's spring break time in college, right? So they were
Hmm.
also touring, but it's a lovely town. The core, the old town, it's a lovely area to stroll, to go to tapas bars. Um, it's obviously has these major sites of the cathedral and the Alcazar and the bull ring, but really what you can't, or I couldn't capture very well in my pictures, was just the feel of the colorful narrow lanes with the colorful buildings and the restaurants, and the good food, and just kind of the ambiance of being there. It was our favorite little of the three Andalusian towns that we visited. It was our favorite for just hanging out, and we actually had 3 days there, and I thought was going to be a little bit too much, but I wanted to make sure my husband had time to get over some jet lag before we actually did some real
Mm.
sightseeing, and it was a good thing that we did. I did a lot more time in the various towns than probably you need to, because it was not sunny Spain, so.
No, I was looking at your photos. You got some rain. That happens.
Um, Yeah, it happens. I left the East Coast because March is nasty, and I wanted to go to sunny Spain, and I got 2 weeks of nonstop rain, and which
Mm.
apparently is very unusual for southern Spain like that. And you know how the song goes, the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. Well, this time it was in southern Spain, and the locals are happy because they've had a
They need
drought
rain.
and their
Yeah.
reservoirs are filling up again. But we had every single day we had rain, and it usually stopped for a little bit at about early afternoon, lunchtime, early afternoon. There would be a break, and the clouds would break, and we might have a little bit of sun and blue sky, and then the clouds would came back in again and would start raining. So we had actually ended up buying umbrellas, which I normally don't travel with an umbrella because I figure, oh, I've got a rain jacket for 1 or 2 days. I don't want to carry one more thing. And then we just got so tired of dealing with and getting soaking wet that we got umbrellas. But yeah, every day for the whole 2 weeks we were there. But
It
so that
happens to us. Yeah. You
yeah,
have to
sometimes
you have to just go in a tapas bar or go in the
yeah,
cathedral or you
right,
have
right.
to just do plan B. And sometimes you end up doing something completely different that you didn't think you were going to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So we ended up having nice, relaxing mornings in the hotel, leisurely breakfasts. Or we'd go into a cafe and have a cappuccino with a pastry, or like you said, one of the tapas bars, and have a sangria, and try another tapas.
Oh, sad.
I know, it was awful.
But I mean, it just,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. It's, you just have to do something different and sometimes it's fun. And hey,
right.
relaxation is not a bad thing, you know?
No, no, and for that reason. I was glad that I kind of planned longer in each of these towns than you might need to if you were just going to see the sights. You could probably see the sights
Hmm.
in a day and a half in Seville, but it was nice having 3 days, and to just kind of relax and enjoy, and
Mm.
yeah, it's a little bit slower travel, which is,
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. That's not my, that has, that, for most of my travel time, that was not my style, but especially now as I'm getting older, my knees can only take so much. And so it's been nice to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, and still get around and enjoy it. But yeah,
Yes,
it's,
yes.
and do it and keep going while you can. That's my thing. Is like, dude, anything can happen at any time. And I did just say, dude, I'm not calling you a dude, but you know what I
Oh,
mean?
I'm
It's
that's
just,
fine. Yeah,
it,
yeah. You're okay.
we've got to do what we can as we can because
Yes,
we don't know what tomorrow brings ever. And so
exactly.
I just think it's like, hey, and if you're relaxing and having a good time, gosh, yeah. And I think that's something we forget to do as we travel, especially as travel writers. We're always whisked away, do this, do that, get as much footage. Oh, and you want it to be
Uh-huh.
nicely perfect? Yeah, right. It's not going to, how fast can they take us around and expect like in-depth stories? It is a thing we battle with as writers and photographers. It's like, hey, you want us to get these amazing, beautiful shots? We need time. We need to check the
Right.
light. We need to know when. And um, so when you get time to actually be a local, that's a beautiful thing because that's
Yeah,
what locals
you're
do. They
right.
go to their
Yep.
coffee shop, they go to their
Yes.
tapas bar with their friends and they hang out. And that's
Yes.
part of it. But as travel
Yes.
writers, we often actually don't get to do it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
always get on
Yeah.
to the next place. But to
Yes.
relax, I think that's a good thing. Just personally saying that
I
is.
Yeah, and we're yeah, I'm starting to do more of that again, because just, getting older, I just can't put in as many miles uh on my pedometer a day like I used to. So
Hey man, I just turned over 50. Like I'm 50 plus now. And I'll tell you what, man, like I don't know if I can do 24-hour drives anymore. It's like I don't know.
ooh, oh,
Yeah. So, I'm having to slow down a little, just a little. I'll do
yeah.
23 hours,
Okay,
but
there you go. There you go.
yeah, yeah, there's probably slow down, but yeah, I love that. Just to be, that happened to us here in Nashville. We went to see our friends in between, our drives and our different engagements. And, you know, it was like we didn't have any plan the first night. And next thing you know, we met up with other people that have been on podcasts with us in Nashville. And we just had this amazing, relaxed night where we didn't have to do anything. And we enjoyed Asheville. Like we've always enjoyed Asheville, but it was like, it was just nice to just be there and just enjoy it without an agenda, actually. And then you start to remember why a place is so amazing is when you don't always have an agenda. I think we travel sometimes trying to do too much. I really do. I'm starting to think that
I'm
we,
guilty of that.
well,
Yep.
I am. I'm Virgo. I'm annoying. It's like we have to do this, we have to, and we need to do it by this time, and we must get here. And then when Nancy, she's very good at like, no, I'd like to go have a glass of wine over there, please. And then I'll go, okay. And then I'll sit there and I'll be all ta 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 ta. And then she's like, you know what, Lisa, just to like slow you down, we're going to have another one because we're walking, the next thing. If you want me to walk,
Good
we're
for
going to have
her.
another glass of wine and we're going to slow down and you're going to actually relax. So
Good for her.
I hate to say it, but my mother's right. She probably is. Nancy, can you hear that in the other room? She can, and she's like, "Can we have wine now?" But that's the truth. We do too much, and I think we actually miss a good story sometimes when we do too much. I really do. I think we tend to go so fast to do so much that, and I mean, story for all of us as travelers, not just travel writers. If we're going too fast, are we really grasping that story while we're there, or are we now going and doing a Wikipedia thing after we've been there and lost the whole vibe? So I think the
Yeah.
slow travel is really good. And that way you connect with locals a little bit more when you're slowed down. As
Yes.
travelers that go too fast, we don't get that connection.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think this trip was awesome. And you went by
It was.
train. What's the train
Yes,
like? Is it
it
cool?
was great. That's one of the things I love about traveling in Europe is they have such a great network of trains. At least in the countries I've been in so far, which is mostly in the western part of Europe. But Spain has a wonderful train network. We did high-speed trains, the whole route. And I before leaving the US, I downloaded an app called Trainline after doing some research, and I was able to use that app then to book my tickets online. Like the night before, I got, I needed to travel, so we would decide, okay, what time do we want to leave tomorrow? Find the train around that time, and then book our tickets. I was able to make my seat reservations if I needed to make a seat reservation on the app, pay for it. So, I put in all my personal information into the app ahead of time. So my name, my passport numbers, my credit card, so that when, all I had to do to buy the ticket is pretty much just, okay, buy the ticket, and it was done. And then they would send me an email with the QR code for the ticket, and then I would also have it in the app as well. So it was super easy. And from what I understand, I can use this app to for pretty much most of Europe and the train systems across Europe, including the Eurostar
Wow.
and Eurail passes. So I'm going to give it another
Mm.
try when I'm there next month in the UK. I'll be using it there. So really great trains, clean, comfortable, high speed. So the other thing that was interesting, which I have not experienced before, is
Mm.
for the high speed trains, they had X-rays for the bags. So the only time I've had that was on the Eurostar, which, not surprising because it's going into this tunnel underwater, so I would expect there to be high security. But for the
Mm.
high-speed trains in Spain, every single one, we had to put our bags through an X-ray machine. Um, so I quickly learned to just give, about an extra 10, 15 minutes time to make sure that I have enough time to do that before catching the train. And it wasn't super backed up or super busy. And
Hmm.
it was just the bags. They didn't check people. But that was, kind of my first experience of having any kind of security check on getting a train in Europe. But it was really easy. That's one of the best things for me about traveling in Europe is how easy it is to get around without a car. Just
That's
don't
interesting.
take a heavy bag like I tend
Okay.
to do.
Well, yeah, you
Uh,
see yeah, but I love this. And you went to Seville, Cordoba, Granada,
yeah, so
Segovia,
I took it. Yeah, yep. So I took
Madrid.
the Segovia was a tour, so we didn't do that by train, but yeah, I took a train from Barcelona to Madrid, then we took a train from Madrid to Seville, Seville to Cordoba, Cordoba to Granada, and then from Granada we went up into the Pyrenees, so my husband could do some fly fishing, and took trains for that, and then back to Madrid to fly home. So the whole trip just by train, and super easy, very convenient. Yeah, it was great.
Wow, this is so cool, man. I'm a little jealous, I'm just saying, but I do want to tell you. So, I did
Yeah.
my Googling on, Andres Segovia, and at least we know he was close to where you were. But I did go and find your tamari balls on Instagram. So everyone, Rose is at quiltripping.com. That's one L. Quiltripping.com for a website, and then Instagram, same name, and Facebook. And I think I did see these, but like now that I look really close, that is really interesting. So it's almost like a form of embroidery in a weird
It
way.
is. It is. Yes. Yes. It
Wow,
it is. And
that's
the
intricate.
the
Ooh.
variety of patterns that you can make out of on a sphere, on a three-dimensional sphere, because they divide it
Mm.
into all these geometric shapes is amazing. So that was
Wow.
actually a beginner one, believe it or not.
Wow. I love this. And I was going to say that, you know what? It kind of reminds me of a hacky sack ball. I don't
Well,
know if
and
you've
that's
seen.
exactly how they were used. Yeah, you're right. So,
Oh,
um, they're not quite sure of the origins. They think maybe they were brought over from China. So the original balls were made out of, leather sacks filled with rice husks or whatever. And then eventually they kind of became the domain of women, so that was their entertainment. They, to play with these
Mm.
balls, and because it's Japan and the Japanese, they have to decorate everything. And so they, over the centuries, they developed these intricate, elaborate designs to decorate these balls. And now they're not so much toys anymore as they're given as gifts for, at least from what I read, they're given as gifts for weddings or for coming of age to young women,
Wow.
that kind of thing. But there's quite a following. So I joined a couple of Facebook groups. I thought I was the only kind of silly person that was getting infatuated by this, but there's women, and men, I guess, people all over the world who are into this and making these. And the class that I took to make this was actually taught by a young lady out of the UK. So,
Wow.
like a variety of Japanese art forms, it's been adapted and adopted by people all over the world.
It's amazing. They kind of remind me of the Pasenki eggs that are done in like the Czech Republic and Ukraine over
Yeah.
Easter.
Yep. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
that design. Yeah, you and I, we're kindred spirits in this design stuff. We are. I know. It's so. That's that beauty of travel, and I think we find our commonality in travel
Yes.
is really what
Yeah.
it is, in the most bizarre ways. Here, I love tiles. I'll go to another country just to see their tiles. And it's really true. I would. And I do. It's like, you know what I mean? I'll go somewhere just for that. Even if you can see it in
Well,
a picture, I still want to see the actual tile.
right.
I can't explain that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I
Yeah.
want to go see those stairs that you saw with all those tiles. And one of them actually has like a painting of like a building. And I'm going, this stuff is intricate. I loved
It
living in
is.
Mexico just because of the tiles,
Yeah.
just because of that. I can't even explain it. I mean, you can visit. No, I want to live here because you have great tiles. I can't explain that, but others can. But looking forward to our next chat. London, maybe you'll have like no rain in London. How about that? Um,
Oh, see, I expect it in London,
yeah, you do. But when you
especially in May. I
go,
do. Yeah.
let's place a bet. I say you have an 80% sunny time in London. What do you
Okay.
think? What do you,
Um, that would be nice. Yes, that would be nice. Um, we'll see.
what's your, bet? What's your
I'm
bet?
gonna go for 50-50.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, let's see what
So
happens on the
I'll
next
be there.
episode.
Yeah. I'll be there for the
Take your
Chelsea Flower
brawly.
Show. Well,
Take
I'm
your
sorry.
brawly. Take your
My brawly.
brawly. Yeah,
Okay.
not just an umbrella, it's a brawly. Yeah, take your
Okay.
brawly. Yeah, I can't wait
Okay.
to have that chat. London is awesome.
Yes.
It is an amazing city, and we got a lot of
One
friends
of
who
my
love going
favorites.
there. Yeah, I have friends who just, wherever they fly to Europe or anywhere, they make sure that their plane ends up in London somewhere just so they can spend 2 days. That's how they plan their travel. It's like, I have to go to London. If I leave this country somehow, my flight has to stop in London on the way
Well,
there or back.
that's not that hard to do because especially, well, from the East Coast, a lot of the flights do go through London. It's a huge hub, obviously. So, and I live outside of Philadelphia, which is an American Airlines hub, and it's a partners with British Air. So I always end up having to go through London, which is a problem because Heathrow is so big and so busy and so crowded that it's not my favorite airport. But I do love London.
Yeah.
But it just, Heathrow is just,
What's the other one? What's the other one
uh,
that we've been to? War begins with a W. Anyway, yeah. But Heathrow is it. But yeah, Warwick. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's Heathrow. It's like a city in itself,
it
Heathrow.
is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I know. Well, listen, you travel safe. We can't wait for next time, everyone. We're going to be talking about London because London's calling, and we're going to talk about the river. So let's go. Thanks so much, Rose. Thanks for sharing your
Thank you.
information on your trip. So everyone can start thinking about going to Spain. And everyone, the links are in the episode notes. I'm even going to put the link for the Instagram for the Tamari Ball so you can see that. So it'll all be there. So thanks so much, Rose.
Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us for Quiltripping Travel with Rose, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring award-winning travel writer and photographer Rose Palmer. Join us for new episodes every second Thursday, and keep up with Rose at quiltripping.com and follow us at bigblendradio.com.